You are Locked On Pistons Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Complete and utter dominance. Obliterated. Annihilated. I'm going to run out of ways to say it. That was as much of a ass kicking you will ever see in the National Basketball Association. Welcome into a live Locked On Pistons postcast. I am your host, Jake Rietma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietma. 132-92. It was the largest lead in franchise history at the halftime break. The Pistons take belt to ass to the Chicago Bulls and dominate. And we're going to talk about it. A huge show all lined up for you tonight on a live Locked On Pistons postcast. Fired up as always to be with you. Malik Beasley sets the single season record for most made three-pointers. We'll touch on that and, of course, wrap it up with our studs and duds. So buckle up, come along for a blowout edition of a live Locked On Pistons postcast. Don't forget, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter. It's your one-stop shop for daily coverage, and it's delivered right to your inbox. League-wide coverage. Sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. And as always, thanks for making the Locked On Pistons postcast your post-game destination. Now listen, I've used annihilated, obliterated, complete and total dominance. Other words come to mind. That's what I'm going to be calling on the chat for this evening. Let me know in the comments your best way to describe this blowout victory, because it takes all of us when it's this lopsided of a win. And some of it's on the Chicago Bulls. I mean, they could be relegated to the G League for all I care after a performance like we saw tonight. But the good news for Chicago is these two teams are going to play tomorrow night. So we're going to run it back, and they're going to get a chance to maybe make up for one of the more abysmal performances you will see. But from the very jump, the Pistons just all over the opposition. And that's the third straight night that we've seen that, or the third straight game we've seen that from the Detroit Pistons. And tonight, they didn't let the opposition get back into it. And some of that is because the Bulls were terrible. They had no interest in playing. They played with no effort. They played with no heart. And some of that is because the Pistons just continue to stay on the gas and continue to go for the jugular. And that's a great combination when it's your team. So whether it be Malik Beasley taking their soul, Cade Cunningham, the bench outscored the Chicago Bulls in the first half. And so, yes, Malik Beasley gets a lot of credit with 24 points, and why not? 7 made three-pointers, a night he breaks the record for the most made three-pointers in a single season in franchise history. And this is before the All-Star break, folks. This is before the All-Star break. Simone Fontecchio was really good tonight. He had 8 points, knocked down a 3. And how about 14 points for Isaiah Stewart, and Marcus Sasser getting in double figures with 14 as well. So the bench really, really good tonight. That was a huge reason why the Pistons were able to outscore Chicago early on. And I watched this game from the beginning thinking, Chicago just doesn't have it tonight. They're in kind of a funk, and there was a timeout early, another timeout early taken by the Bulls, and they just, from the very jump, were a day late and a dollar short and too slow. And again, you go up and down this Pistons roster, but Cade Cunningham was getting others involved early. He finished with 7 assists, but I believe he had 5 in the first half. And when you hold a team to 11 points in a quarter, you're going to win most of those games. And the Pistons remain undefeated in games they've held the opposition under 100. And they hold the Bulls to 29 first half points. I mean, just saying that out loud. Some of it, yes, the Pistons defense was really, really good. Some of it, the Bulls were just terrible. I believe they missed 21 consecutive shots, they said on the broadcast. Second quarter, the Pistons had a 23-0 run. I mean, you can throw all kinds of facts and figures and numbers out there about this one, but it was just a good old-fashioned butt whooping where it looked like a varsity team against a junior varsity team. There's no other way to put it. And with the win, the Pistons continue the win streak, which we love to see. That's now 3 wins in a row for the Pistons. 2 games above 500 at 28-26, 14-13 on the road, 14-13 at home. And like I mentioned, these two teams will play again tomorrow night. So there's my shameless plug to make sure you join us tomorrow night as well for a live Locked On Pistons postcast. But let me know in the comments what stood out to you for how well this Detroit Pistons team played. And when you beat up by a team this way in the first half and you put it out of reach early on, there's a number of different factors that lead to that. I mentioned the defense. I mentioned the way that Malik Beasley was connecting from distance. The offense seemed to play with great rhythm. Cade getting others involved. What else stood out? Let me know in the comments, and we'll get to the comments right away, because on a night like tonight, there's no expert analysis needed. There's no, breakdown needed. It was a complete and total butt whooping, and I love to see it in the comments. Let's do it again tomorrow night. Demetrius McNeil says, once the Pistons open up a 49-point lead, the Bulls have no chance. Yeah, don't limit it to the Bulls. Nobody has a chance when you're down 49. Mr. Wright says, wild win. I'm here for it. Asar was a madman on defense. Yes, I hadn't mentioned Asar yet. I'm glad you said that, because he really was. And for those watching on YouTube, and I had to bring out the World Champions t-shirt for tonight's show, because the Pistons played like world champions tonight, or maybe the Bulls just played like a G League team, or maybe a combination of both. Mr. My City, belt to ass. Let's do it again tomorrow. There you go. Asar was so active tonight. Indeed, he was. He's talking on the post game right now. Don't have the audio on, but yes, you can see him continuing to grow, continuing to develop, which we love to see. Awesome stuff from Asar Thompson. And yeah, he brings the energy. We talk about that all the time, what he provides defensively. In the clean game he played, he was 7 of 8 from the floor. And it's not just scoring. He was plus 21. And you look at the plus minus for all these guys, and it's going to be overwhelmingly positive because of the domination that was put forth at the United Center tonight. But he gets in on the action with 4 steals. That's a guy that's impacting the game on the defensive side of things as well, forcing those turnovers. When you look at it from a team side of thing, I mean, the Bulls rather, at one point were shooting, I think the first half, 21% from the floor, just egregious. They finish shooting 35%, 35 of 100, and just 10 of 47 from the long line, 21% from 3. And any way you chalk up to lose a basketball game, the Bulls did that tonight. 16 turnovers, and the Pistons were able to create 20 points off those turnovers and get out and run in transition as well, with 26 fast break points and 60 points in the paint for the Detroit Pistons. So you can slice it and dice it a lot of different ways, and you're going to get the same result. This was a dominant win for the Detroit Pistons, who left no doubt. And this type of win can really exude the confidence moving forward, especially when you considering you're going up against the same team tomorrow night. Now, I know I've said that already a couple of times, but on the same token, if you're the Chicago Bulls, it's man in the mirror time. I mean, the Pistons stole the Bulls' pride, that took their soul out there tonight. You could even say they took their dignity with how badly the Pistons beat up on the Chicago Bulls, and to a man. I know we always say that in pro sports especially, but these are professional athletes out there. And so for 1 second, if you think the Bulls aren't going to give it everything they have tomorrow, maybe not. I don't want to give them that much credit, actually. I'm going to walk that back. But if it were me, I would be playing with a reckless abandon and a desperate measure tomorrow if I'm the Chicago Bulls, to atone for getting absolutely embarrassed. A couple more comments we'll get to. Mr. My City, this team can be really good as currently constructed. I agree. Malik Beasley is my favorite Piston shooter of all time in only half a season. That's from Mr. My City. Yeah, you know what I'm going to say, though? I'd still we don't need the shimmy. I know that's his thing, but if he's knocking down 3-pointers like he was tonight, who cares? He can do whatever. But he showed off. He was able to do put it on the deck and throw down with a dunk. His only 2-point bucket tonight, Malik Beasley, I'm talking, was an impressive, emphatic dunk off the dribble, and you gotta love that. Trey McNichols is up next. JB wasn't lying when he said this team will have an identity by February or March, and agreed. It's progressing ahead of schedule. How often have I said that on the live Locked On Pistons postcast, that this team is light years ahead of where you would have expected them to be be or projected them to be in JB Bickerstaff's first year. So I hate using the term playing with house money or that type of mentality, because I don't think that fits what this team is about. If you ask JB Bickerstaff, they're right where they expected to be. And so as fans, I think it's only right to embody that same line of thinking if you're a Detroit Pistons fan. A couple more comments to get to. Mr. My City, 3 straight games of running the clock out on the last possession. I can get used to this. If it takes us to get big leads, to get wins, let's do it. Yeah, I mean, the recipe, the blueprint has been pretty similar the last 3 games. Jump out, build that huge lead. And tonight, the only difference was the Bulls were so egregiously bad that they had no chance in coming back. And here's Mr. Wright agreeing with me. The Bulls are going to play hard tomorrow, in my opinion. I completely agree. They're going to come out with a desperate approach, and they have to, because, again, the Pistons took their soul at the United Center, at home, no less. And listen, I don't know if I've shared this with the audience. I was an employee of the Chicago Bulls. I worked at the United Center. I think I have shared that before. But you walk into that venue, that arena, and there's an aura. I mean, there's the Michael Jordan statue in there when you walk in. You feel it. This is a proud franchise with so much history and such a prestigious franchise that the current state of the Chicago Bulls, and again, I'm not some Detroit or some Chicago sports fan, but they ought to be embarrassed from that lackluster effort tonight. Ashton the trainer says Detroit basketball. You got to love it. I was actually thinking about coming on here and just given the whole Pistons Mason Stadium public address announcer, the at 6'3" Chauncey Billups from Virginia Union University. Bang. Wallace. All right, that's a little old school for you guys. 2004 going to work era Pistons. But that's what tonight reminded me of. Just a team out there imposing their will and taking the soul of the opposition. Bulls, this one more comment. Bulls didn't even look bothered by this tonight. They are done for the season. Yeah, that's what I would be most concerned about if I'm Billy Donovan, the Bulls head coach, that you look at this roster up and down and who's stopping this? Who's stopping the bleeding if you're the Chicago Bulls? I mean, is it, I honestly, is it Kobe White? He had 5 points tonight. I mean, is it Josh Giddey? He had 11. That is an embarrassing stat line, with the leading scorer having 12 points, just 2 starters in double figures. I mean, that's just egregious. But 4th and final meeting for the 2 teams tomorrow night at the United Center. The Pistons have now won 2 of the 3, with the Bulls winning the first matchup back in November. Bulls won that one 122-112. Pistons won the second game of the series in early February, earlier this month on the 2nd, 127-119. And then tonight, just the complete and total mollywhopping, 132-92. All right, we're going to take a quick break and break down Malik Beasley. He deserves it because he set a record tonight. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. It's alive. Locked On Pistons POSTCAST here on Locked On Sports Detroit. All right, my friends, it's time to talk to you all about Open Phone. That's right. Listen up and listen good. Running a small business means you're wearing a lot of hats. Your personal phone becomes your business phone, and before you know it, you're juggling customer calls all day and night. Who wants to do that? Not me. We got Pistons basketball to watch. And you know what? As your business grows, your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. That's where Open Phone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help you keep your work and personal life separate. Nobody's got time to mix the two, right? For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees, you get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. OpenPhone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. Efficiency, people, that's what it's all about. If you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages, they're sent directly to your customers, ensuring you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba, openphone.com/lockedonnba for 20% off 6 months. Openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. Just visit openphone.com/lockedonnba. All right, appreciate everybody tuning in to a live Locked On Pistons postcast after a blowout win over the Chicago Bulls. And to reset the scene for you, 132-92, the Pistons led 71-29 at halftime, their largest lead at a halftime break in franchise history. And that essentially sums it all up. The Bulls were held to 11 points in that second quarter. That included a 23-0 run. And from the very jump, Detroit was the varsity team and the Bulls were the junior varsity team. I mean, it was that bad. If you're and you know what? I'll take a step further. Every fan tonight sporting and supporting the Chicago Bulls should be warranted a full refund. The fans should be refunded for having to sit through that tonight. And that's coming from a Pistons fan. I mean, those poor Chicagoland Bulls supporters did not deserve to be forced to watch that. That's just the best way you can put it. I mean, that was egregiously bad. There is no other way to put it. But more comments to get to before we get into the Malik Beasley record-setting performance. James Holohan is up next. The Bulls played like garbage. Indeed, they did. Moses Rios, I'd be happy with the split. That's what I said before the game started, but I'd be much happier with a sweep. No. We're not talking splits. Sweep. This team has a chance to continue to climb up those Eastern Conference standings. And if you look right now where the Pistons are in the Eastern Conference standings, they're still at that 6th spot, holding off Miami, who, if you look right now, the Pistons would be matched up with the New York Knicks at 28 and 26. The Pistons are that 6th seed and climbing up on the Milwaukee Bucks. They were talking about that last night when I was watching Bucks versus Warriors, the new look Golden Warriors, and they were talking about how close the Pistons are to the Milwaukee Bucks. They're breathing down their necks. So time to continue to stockpile those victories. Keon TV says, for real, took care of business tonight. The rookies played better. And sorry, Chicago fans. Yeah, I think that covers a lot of it. The rookies did play well. And speaking of playing really well, Malik Beasley, time to give him his flowers because he was that good. He's helped the Pistons get off to a great start, checking in off the bench, that spark plug, and continued it all the way through tonight. 8 of 12 from the floor, 7 of 10 from the long line. Those 7 made three-pointers. He now passes Sadiq Bey as the all-time leader in Pistons history for most three-pointers made in a single season. And you got to love it. He knew he made the record breaker. He knew when he broke the record that how big of a deal it was. And, he had that moment with the rest of his teammates. He's an awesome team guy, energy guy. They talked about his big personality, leaving signed shoes around the city of Detroit and posting it on Instagram. So lucky fans would go home with some signed shoes. I mean, this is a guy on the culture. And we know what he did at the trade deadline, going to talk to JB Bickerstaff, saying, I don't want to be traded. I want to stay with this Pistons team, because a lot of other teams in the National Basketball Association saw the value that he would bring in the addition in the middle of the season because of his ability to shoot threes. But Malik Beasley said, I want to stay in Detroit. Now, it's tough to say if there are any formal plans in motion to ship Malik Beasley somewhere, but the fact of the matter is he remains a Detroit Piston, and that's good news for the Motor City. So great to see Malik Beasley set the record tonight. Awesome stuff. And he passes Sadiq Bey for the most made three-pointers in a single season. So congrats to Malik Beasley, and congrats to the Pistons on a huge win tonight over the Chicago Bulls, 132-92. We'll wrap it up with our final segment of the evening, our studs and duds. We got a lot of people tuning in, so send me your studs and duds. We'll read the best ones on air, and of course, I'll give you mine. That's next on a live Locked On Pistons postcast. Final segment of the program. We tell you who the studs are and who the duds are. And I think we could all just go through the Chicago Bulls roster tonight, one by one, and give a dud performance to each and every one of the members of the Chicago Bulls. They were that bad. Again, I'm calling for a refund for everyone that attended that game at the United Center tonight. And I think the employees should make, overtime or time and a half for having to work through that. I think of a good friend of mine, Chuck Swirsky, who's the radio play-by-play voice for the Chicago Bulls, and he brings passion and energy and that's infectious to every single call. I think of George Blaha tonight, and he was having fun with Greg Kessler. Love to hear that on the Pistons side of things, but a National Basketball Association game should not have that margin of victory for any team. And that halftime deficit, I mean, it truly was out of this world and something you don't see very often. But Detroit wins it, and these two teams will play tomorrow. So we'll see what kind of character, what kind of resiliency, what kind of heart the Chicago Bulls show coming back in this one. Now, for our studs portion of the program, and I know I see the comment, the Bulls are tanking there. That's fine, and that's a part of the National Basketball Association. I know they were sellers at the deadline, and you make that trade, and all of a sudden you lose the oomph in your team. I get all that, but you still have your pride, you still have your dignity, you still have your competitive edge as a pro athlete. You can't lay over it like that. But James, I do agree. That's from James Houlihan. The Bulls are tanking, and they are playing like garbage. Yeah, they are, and tanking has not forever, but lately widely been a, controversial topic. And, what happened with the Dallas Mavericks a couple years ago when they lost the last game of that season, and even to stay out of the playoffs, for goodness sakes. But there's been long stories of tanking, and proving it is one thing. But the Bulls, if they have any ounce of professionalism and competitiveness, they'll come back tomorrow, which I expect them to, and tomorrow night at the United Center. But other studs for the Detroit Pistons, I mentioned Malik Beasley. Of course, we've talked all about him, but I got to give some love to Isaiah Stewart, because I think this was one of his better games as a member of the Detroit Pistons. 14 points, 6 of 8 shooting, even knocked down 2 threes. He was 2 for 2 from the long line, had some rebounds in there. He was plus 24, and he played with a swagger tonight, which you love to see. The entire Pistons bench deserves their flowers, deserves their credit. Of course, led by Malik Beasley, but go ahead and add, like I said, Isaiah Stewart there. Marcus Sasser had 14, albeit a lot of them were very late in the game, but you're still 5 of 5 shooting and 4 of 4 from the long line. So if he can bring that kind of efficiency to the Pistons offense off the bench, that can be a valuable asset. Cade Cunningham, give him some love. He was plus 34. I mean, plus 34, 20 points to go along with 7 assists, 6 rebounds as well, 9 of 14 from the floor. I mean, it was just a total team domination. Now, Jalen Duren and Tim Hardaway Jr. didn't do a whole heck of a lot. 3 points for Tim Hardaway Jr., 4 for Jalen Duren. Duren did go ahead and grab 11 boards, so he got in double figures there, and had 5 assists as well. But in a night that you have that type of advantage from the very jump, sometimes these statistics can get lost, and in the end, it's about the complete and total domination that the Pistons put forth tonight. So looking forward to following this up tomorrow, final game before the All-Star break, the Pistons will have some time off. And so when you look at that Pistons schedule, yes, they have some time off after tomorrow's game, but it would just be so nice to see the Pistons go into the All-Star break with that 4-game winning streak. So they'll have some time off and then get back in action on Friday, February the 21st. And that is, of course, on the road in San Antonio against the Spurs. So some time off after tomorrow's game, Pistons at Bulls. You know the Bulls are going to be coming out fighting, as they should be if they have any ounce of pride. And then it'll be time for a nice, well-deserved All-Star break with Cade Cunningham playing in the All-Star game and playing and competing, I should say, in the three-point shootout. So that'll be fun to watch. Pistons fans will be watching with great intrigue as they have their first All-Star since Blake Griffin, first Pistons All-Star that was drafted by the Detroit Pistons since Andre Drummond. And that's still hard to believe when you say it out loud. But all is well that ends well. And tonight was awesome. Tonight was a lot of fun. And again, you just don't see a lot of blowouts like that in the National Basketball Association, where you could literally knew this game was over. I will say halftime, but it really felt like it was over after the first quarter as well. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope we got everybody's comments in here as well. Ronald McDonald, 1977 says Asar. Yes, sir. Keon TV says, I think we face the Spurs. Indeed, we do. That's for the next game after the All-Star break. But my name is Jake Rietma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietma. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit. We've got post-game coverage for you after the Pistons. The Tigers season's getting ready to start. Pitchers and catchers report. So you know we've got Locked On Tigers in the hopper on the horizon. Can't wait for that. What an exciting year it was down the stretch last year when the Tigers made the playoffs. Looking forward to all the momentum around the Old English League. Can't wait to get that started. And you know we've got Locked On Lions and Locked On Wolverines football when football season returns. Also, how about the Detroit Red Wings? They were playing really good hockey before the Four Nations face-off. I know the last game before the All-Star break, or not technically the All-Star break, but the Four Nations break left a bad taste in the mouth of Red Wings fans, and rightfully so, and all of us, because they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning and gave up, felt like 100 goals in the first period. I know it was only 4, but you get the point. So that being said, subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit, because this is our community. We're getting closer and closer to 2,000 subscribers. That's our goal. Before the end of the basketball season, I want to have 2,000 subscribers on this platform. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to be on the air with you talking Detroit basketball. Pistons win tonight. Final score, 132-92. Not a typo. Pistons now 28-26. Bulls fall to 22-32. Short break. We'll talk to you tomorrow night when these two teams go at it again at the United Center. We'll be with you post-game for a live Locked On Pistons postcast. Until then, have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next time on Locked On Sports Detroit.